All right, let's get started. So today's session has come out of many years of research into how to rapidly build courses and work with learning management systems in different and unique ways. And more recently, I've become quite interested in what we can do with artificial intelligence. And I think it's very timely that ChatGPT has come out, and so many different artificial intelligence apps on the web and mobile are coming out as well that can really obviously transform the world. So how can AI transform your online courses? First, I'm just going to go through, set some expectations for the hour ahead. The core learning outcomes are, well, how can you create a high-level design using ChatGPT? Which AI tools can you use to help produce content rapidly? And we're going to pull it all together with probably about a 20-minute practical exercise where we give you a step guide on how to rapidly produce an e-learning course. And there'll be a Q&A at the end. And as I say, Alex will be replying to any comments, so let's try and keep that forum going throughout. And let us know any questions and also any AI tips you might have. Firstly, a bit about me. So I'm co-founder of Coursebox, which is an AI rapid course building tool that Alex and I are launching soon. I've got over 12 years experience in higher education, vocational, corporate educational training. I founded a learning management system and worked with clients such as the University of Adelaide and Wine Australia. I've also founded and worked as part of a web development agency over the last 12 years where we build bespoke e-learning, and we've worked with some fascinating clients, currently working with Adelaide Airport on some security modules. Alex, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Alex. I'm Travis's business partner. So I come from a digital marketing management background. I've worked particularly in the medical side, but also software, and been in the education space and HR training side of things as well for quite some time. And yeah, obviously the development of AI tools over the last year to even few months is extremely exciting, and that's what Travis and I have come together on, and yeah, we're really excited to be here running this webinar with you.
Thank you. All right, so what are some of the key problems that we might be able to address at this early stage of AI with rapid course building and marketing and deployment? Well, we know it takes a long time to create high quality learning experiences for existing learning platforms, and designing a course structure can be quite a roadblock for a lot of people to get started, especially if you haven't got years of instructional design experience. And it's often expensive to create those digital and interactive e-learning modules and pathways. So some of the AI solutions out there, well, what we're going to go through in particular is using ChatGPT to create those high-level designs. And then we need to address, well, how do we reference the content that we're generating, or how do we incorporate existing content? How do we deal with plagiarism and referencing? So we can use ChatGPT, obviously, to generate text and quizzes to a certain degree, but we do need to be wary. More recently, Canva has come out with AI for presentations. A really interesting tool that I've been playing around with, and actually I just made a fun animation with our family the other day in just 5 minutes, is called Steve.ai, and you can generate animations. Because obviously creating a course, it's not just about plugging in your existing content or writing new text. It's also about creating interactive experiences. So you're going to need some animations, you're going to need videos, voiceovers, and there's a lot of AI tools out there to do the whole gamut. Learning management systems themselves, are incorporating different forms of AI to automate learner pathways and create customized learning experiences. We can also use AI as chatbots to answer questions in real time, rather than having to wait maybe a few days or even a week for your, let's say, your lecturer to get back to you on something. And often, for example, when I was creating massively open courses for the university, we were quite limited to the sorts of ways you can automate assessments. To multiple choice is the common tool that a lot of people reach for, or there's other tools like fill in the blank and mix and match, but you're really stretching what a multiple choice assessment is when you're automating it. What's really interesting though is with ChatGPT, to a certain degree, you can trust it to give feedback while you're going through an e-learning, immediate feedback, even on a 3,000 word essay, which could be at least as good as a pre-assessment task. Or even using a marking matrix to give you the full marks. But obviously, we're going to want some humans in there to double check it. And then there's tools like Jasper AI for marketing, and it actually does a range of things. And text to image generation is a fascinating area as well that I'll go through. And here's a bit of a visualization of how those tools might look. Starting on the left to right, we're talking about AI content generation. Okay, well, how do you chunk down your content for a 20-minute course or a 2-year course or a 10-week accelerated program? And how can we trust that? And how do we edit that and bring in maybe a human factor? AI quizzes. Well, we can actually you write those multiple choice questions, but when I've played around with ChatGPT, you've got to be wary because I'll say, write me a quiz on such and such with 1 correct answer and 5 that are wrong or nearly wrong. And the first few times I did it, all of the answers were perfectly correct. So that's something to watch out for. And this is what's cool about the chat part of GPT, isn't it? That it learns, it has a conversation with you. And if you're not happy with that, it's like, well, no, those last 4 answers are actually correct. It's actually got a kind of sense of humor, doesn't it? That it'll say, oh, my apologies, I'm so sorry about that. And it's often very polite, and then it will often go and write the correct thing. Customized learning is interesting, and this is taking things out of just ChatGPT and where you'll look at learning management systems perhaps that have integrated some real smarts and algorithms with the AI to create custom pathways and help learners with suggested content, suggested videos. If there's a library of 100 courses and you struggle with this particular course on biomechanics, it might then recommend another course in that library that's going to help you fill your gap. So skill gap or gap skills. AI interactives, it's interesting. A bit like I was saying with Steve AI for creating animations. Some course authoring tools, and I know Articulate Storyline and the big players are working hard to be in front of this, but creating interactives easily and quickly are important. And then AI feedback, so actually getting instant assessments with useful feedback, and it's unbelievably smart. So it does know a lot if you're integrating GPT-4 in particular. So what are the core AI options to use in e-learning? Obviously, GPT-4 at the moment is massive for generating content, and I gave myself a 1-hour challenge a couple of weeks back to write a 100-page book using GPT 3.5 actually in an hour. And I was able to do that, which is phenomenal. And before GPT-4, I can't imagine. So that extends beyond building e-learning courses and into educational manuals for your HR department. It obviously saves a lot of time and money. And then there's the risks associated with that. Well, I actually had somebody that was doing that. and the AI is going to be filling a lot of jobs, which is probably not going to go into that today, but that is certainly a risk of how good this can be and how fast things are escalating. We talked about Steve AI for animations. Now there's a range of options out there for automatically creating images. The OpenAI tool that, and OpenAI is responsible for ChatGPT. DALL-E is what they created for generating images from OpenAI. And I played around with that a lot, and it's a bit of fun, but you can say, show me a cat riding a skateboard in the style of Dali. Actually, I don't want Dali, I want it in the style of Monet. So it's actually quite good at generating artworks. But if you say, put a picture of two men and a woman on the screen, it will often do some very scary faces, with two noses or two ears. And so it's great for art, but so far, certainly DALL-E comes up short, I think, when it's producing especially human and realistic photos. But I'll go through a couple of other options I found recently that can do it better. And I've got to say, playing around with Canva AI as well the other day was a very similar result. So the images were okay, but there's a tool I'll show you in a minute where it goes to that next level of detail, and the realism is quite astounding. ChatDoc, if you haven't come across this, and I only just came across it, it's really cool. You can actually upload any document, let's say a PDF or a 100-page thesis, and have a conversation with your document. I find that really interesting. But I think that will save all of us a lot of time if we're trying to create courses or do all sorts of things where we've got a massive document, but we just need a quick overview, a summary of those things to see if we want to cite it or use it in our educational courseware. Well, we mentioned Coursebox earlier in the piece. We're actually working on a course build automation, course authoring tool. There's a lot of other course authors out there doing something similar, like iSpring and Adobe Articulate Storyline. And I think this is really interesting to see where that goes. And people are doing it in different ways. GPT, LMS. So there's a lot of LMSs out there. Again, this one is integrating with Coursebox. But I saw an LMS just today that is propagating content, courseware, pathways, you name it, using artificial intelligence. And I think that's very exciting. And I also think AI is just setting the bar. It's almost getting to the point very rapidly that if you're using products that don't have some level of clever AI integrated within it somehow, you're probably missing a great opportunity. And Jasper is a good one for marketing automation. And I tried it for generating images too. All right, so let's. Oh, I've got to let somebody in. I'll just give 1 second. And incidentally, I'm using Canva right now. So let's talk about the high level design and what that is. When I first worked as an instructional designer, I came out of a master's degree when I was 30, a little while ago now. And one of the first questions was, well, what is an instructional designer? And, obviously you put these two terms together and it's pretty obvious. But the idea that you design instruction for learners is an interesting concept. And learning designer, and there's a lot of other versions of this term out there, but certainly one of the first things you do as an instructional designer is you collate all the content from your stakeholders and you rearrange all the content, if there is any, or you need to sort of get somebody to write some content, and then put together a high-level design. Well, what does that mean? Well, how are you going to chunk down the learning into bite-sized bits so that learners get it? And that often comes about through thinking about, well, what are the learning objectives? And then you work back from what are the learning objectives? Okay, well, I've got to teach these 6 things and it's got to take 25 minutes. Okay, well, that's probably about 5 minutes per core learning objective. And then let's call it 5 lessons. Okay, well, how many how are we going to chunk down those lessons? Well, it's probably 3 to 5 sort of, let's say, pages of content or sections within those lessons. What's beautiful here is, with or without content, we can use ChatGPT to automate in seconds that process. Takes a lot of the time out of it. One conundrum, I suppose, with 3.5, which was upgraded only about a month ago, was the limitation on characters, which was ended up being about 2,000 words for your query, including your input parameters. But GPT-5 went up to about 25,000 or thereabouts. So you can actually input a lot of your existing content. And depending on what tool you're using, that's just talking about GPT. But if you're talking about some other tools out there with AI integrations, it may well handle the chunking of content better and handle more inputs. And I think that's going to evolve over time as well. So the high-level design process. And here's an example. So I've gone into ChatGPT 4. And by the way, there's going to be a practical exercise at the end of this. So if you haven't signed up to ChatGPT before, and the free version is absolutely fine, I'll ask you to log in to that at the end, so you can follow along. Yeah. So in this case, I've said create a 20-minute course outline, so a high-level design or an outline, to teach people about BAL 40 window requirements in bushfire zones. And I might not know anything about this, but what's interesting is I've sat next to engineers and water engineers and all sorts of people, and sort of, showing them this, and when they fall off the chair and get back up, they're like, oh my goodness, I've just delivered an accelerator program, and this outline is actually the best accelerator program design I've ever seen. And it's like, wow, it's, everything's accurate. And I was surprised in chapter 5 it actually recommended this particular type of water engineering that nobody knows about. So it can be quite surprising. In fact, even that e-learning book in an hour that I wrote with GPT, I was quite surprised and learned a lot, in particular in chapter 7. And I'll send you a copy of that if anybody's interested at the end of this. So the first phase of instructional design is that high-level design. So this is, as I say, we can use AI with or without existing content to create that high-level design structure for your course, irrespective of how long it is, by the way. And if GPT doesn't accept, a certain amount of characters, or it gets blocked halfway through, just ask it to continue, or plug in more information, more contextual information. And I've done that a few times, because sometimes it does just stop. So the second step in instructional design is create content treatment. So actually working with the content within the context of your high-level design and writing all the bits. So if you've been chatting and engaging with GPT, it remembers that you've created the high-level design together. So the context is there. Now you can say, okay, well, write me the first 100 words about topic 1.1. And it will write that. Okay, do it again for 1.2. So it can be a bit of a step process if you're just using the raw ChatGPT and not an integrated course builder. But it's a bit of a process, but it's extremely fast. And of course, if you've got existing content, plug it in. Or if you know something better than GPT, edit it or write it yourself. And that's how you can step through that content treatment. And it's just copy and paste into a document. Tone and style is interesting. So, okay, I liked 1.1, but on the left I've said, well, rewrite it, but this time as a poem, right? So it just writes it as a poem. And that's a bit of a funny exercise there, but that could be quite useful in certain circumstances, certain types of learning, especially if you're teaching prose or poetry. And on the right, I've said, okay, we'll rewrite it, but this time with a more playful tone. And this is one of the things you have to do as an instructional designer when you're treating content, is keep a tone. When I worked at open colleges, it would often be an open, very friendly sort of tone. But in some contexts, maybe you're writing a course for the military, you might not want that. You might want a more authoritative voice. Or if you're actually writing something for kids, You know, you'd want it to be much more playful, and you can actually get it to adjust the level of language as well. So I got it to write a poem for a group of 8-year-olds, and it was like a version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but it was applied to something else. So you can get it to write in the style of Stanislavski or Shakespeare or whatnot. The only risk there is I did get it to write a couple of stanzas in the style of Shakespeare, and the second half it was literally just copying and pasting from Shakespeare, and I was like, hey, what the hell are you doing? So watch out for that. And there's also a thing called hallucinations you'll come across with GPT as well. What does that mean? It's when it thinks it knows the truth and it just makes stuff up. So you do have to be aware of that to a degree, and you know, and that's why curation and quality assurance from a real expert is going to be pretty important for a while at least. And what other hallucinations have I experienced? Well, referencing. If you ask it to write Harvard-style referencing with at least 10, you know, references, and then you go and check those references at the end, guess what? They don't exist. The links don't work. So I'd recommend against that. But I've got some tips for how you can address that. Scenarios. So obviously, when you're treating content, there's a lot of different things you need to think about. What, you know, and again, work back from your core learning objectives. And that's another thing you can ask ChatGPT to write for you. Write me my learning objectives, but you may well know what they are to begin with. So scenarios is a good way to ensure people are understanding and learning from your content. And we use these a lot at open colleges. So we would have, like, let's say 2 years diploma, and every few months you'd be doing a certain unit that worked towards learning objectives with heavy assessment items. But this was all online learning, so we would chunk that down into a different type of assessments, more like checkpoints, and break down those major assessments, usually using scenarios, because that's a good way to really spell it out. If you're teaching home nursing, let's say, and you want to highlight a point of a work health and safety problem in that area, you might need to really spell out that scenario and then step users through the process of identifying what are the safety hazards in home nursing. So you can get GPT to write you some scenarios, and that saves so much time. Or you can even get it to write a branching scenario. So some course authoring tools out there allow you to have branching scenarios, and based on your reply, instead of just saying, no, you're wrong, it will often sort of say, well, that could be right in this scenario, you know, but what about this other thing? And it branches into another scenario. And you can see on the right, I've started creating those branch scenarios. Assessments, as I say, be careful with how you write it and check that it's, you know, giving you wrong answers if you want them to be wrong. And one of the important things about multiple choice answers, you know, there's that joke, when is all of the above correct? Always. It's always correct. And the reason is because a lot of people sort of don't have that as an option in all of their answers. They just have it when everything's correct. And yeah, so you don't want to be in a situation where all of your answers are correct. Make sure that you do give some that are wrong in multiple choice. On the right, you can see I've asked for something that's a more interactive quiz type. And in this case, it's a drag and drop. So, you know, you could build, let's say, SCORM compliant educational modules from scratch. And if you do, then you can build out all sorts of interactives. Like I remember designing a 9-hole golf game, and if you putted, you would get quiz, you know, so you can actually build bespoke quizzes just using PHP. But more often than not, you'll be using some sort of course builder. There'll be certain limitations within that, and you can plug in those limitations into ChatGPT, and it will spit out something pretty interesting. Now, talking about referencing and plagiarism, and I'm looking into this more and more. if you haven't signed up to Microsoft Bing's integration, Microsoft put in $10 billion recently into ChatGPT, so they're pretty serious, and they've got an integration up and running. The first few times I used it, I got to say I wasn't that impressed. It was sort of saying, no, you're asking too much, we're not going to do that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going back to GPT-4 then, or I'm going to trial Bard, although Bard is the Google equivalent. I couldn't sign up in Australia yet, but I was able to get early access to chat on Microsoft Bing. And today, for the first time, I actually found it to be quite useful. So I got it to write me a 20-minute course on how to use Bing with 3 references. And this time it actually put in references, and you can see them down the bottom. And I clicked on those references and they actually exist. And why? Because it actually has access to the internet, whereas certainly ChatGPT 3.5 did not, and I don't think 4 does. So on the right, I did an equivalent thing with GPT-4, and the links did not work. They might have worked in 2021, perhaps, but I found they just made up. So be aware of that. And we'll look more and more. There's other things for like detecting automatically using AI if something's been written by AI, and there's more and more of that. And that's more a point for assessing content rather than what we're doing, which is sort of self-checking that we're not doing anything wrong, right? As course designers, we don't want to publish stuff out there using AI that's actually plagiarizing. And you know, Italy has just cancelled GPT. You can't use it at all in Italy, so that's another thing to be aware of. And I'm not sure how far that extends. And I think you know, there's some countries doing that, and I know, you know, Australia is banning it in certain states, and I understand South Australia is probably the only state where students are allowed to use it as long as it's referenced. It's 5:30. I'm just keeping an eye on time. Animations. This is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm just going to step you through how Steve AI works. If you want to create an animation and it does voiceovers and it's got millions of characters, and you can swap them out, you know, an old lady or a young boy, can walk from left to right, all sorts of stuff. So I've thrown in my script on this screen, and down the bottom, by the way, there's some settings, add voiceover, music, and so on. It's got a lot of smarts. I've created a 5-minute animation in 5 minutes, which was pretty amazing. It was just fun, but I think it can be more useful if you push it harder. So you choose your design style. You see there's some handy designs here, and you can change all your backgrounds, and you can change your foregrounds and so on. And then you can step through, and down the bottom it's got your storyboard, which you can drag and drop around and have playing for a certain length of time. And I was able to change my characters, my background, my colors, my texts, and everything. But the AI actually generates a hell of a lot of it for you, and it's pretty clever. So I recommend having a play around with that, or you know, let me know if you find something better for animation. But it also plugs in voiceover, and I can't recall the tool we were trying out recently. Alex, you might remember. If you do, please put it in the chat for us. With Dr. Steve Turner, where you can train the system to recall your own voice, and then it will read out all of the transcripts in your voice. Now, we tried it on a minimal amount of recording, that particular AI system, and didn't have great results, but I do understand if you train it well and over a longer period of time, and different sort of expressions within your voice rather than too monotonous, you can have some great results. And that's another thing. And then you can plug in that voiceover into here or into your custom animation, or even no animation, depending on your use case. And here, you know, I was able to publish that, download it, send it by email. Took me about 5 minutes, and it was not a 5-minute animation, it's 21-second animation, but that was pretty fun. ChatDoc, I really liked this tool. I uploaded my master's final, it's not really a thesis, but my final major document, let's say. which was on cyborgs, interesting enough. And then you can see on the right, when I've uploaded that document, I can ask some questions about the document. And you're sort of chatting and interacting with the document, which seems a bit crazy. But up the top right, I wrote, what is plagiarism and what is the mandatory penalty for that? And my document doesn't go into plagiarism at all. So I'm not sure why it answered it. But the second one, how are humans already cyborgs? Because I knew that was something in the paper. And then it goes through and reflects on that answer. But yeah, you can just get a quick summary of the document. It's also got some suggestions. I think that first question was actually a suggested question that I clicked, yes, I want to know the answer to that suggested question. But this can be used in all sorts of ways, I believe, for if you're working with clients, for example, or you've got a massive amount of content over the years, and you're trying to sort of compile it all into one place. You could summarize it and get answers out of it rapidly. Here it is, Starry AI. So this was my favorite system that I found for generating images from text. Better than Canva, better than DALL-E. And in here, you actually get a real drill down of what you want to generate. So I've written woman lifting a box correctly. Incidentally, when I wrote incorrectly on all of this, all these software programs, it was always being lifted correctly. So that was a bit weird. I'm not sure I tried it with Starry AI though, so I might try that later. So this would be a great picture for a WHS module. Looks pretty realistic. I don't see any double mouths or double ears or anything, which is great. So that's really good. And I think we're going to see more and more of this where you're really, going into advanced settings and not just writing whatever it's going to guess you want. Here's an example using Canva with AI. I did get a sort of realistic aeroplane, but you can see the top is all sort of jagged, looks more cartoon-esque than anything. And on the left, you can see what I've plugged in, airplane landing, photo style, but there's filmic and there's a lot of other options. DALL-E I've actually found it really cool if you want like pop art of something, and then if you're going to theme your e-learning course in an art style, I think DALL-E would do a really good job of what you want, especially if you're happy with pop art, or but even if you go with Monet or something. But it does fall down when it starts writing text. So I would often say generate an AI icon, and it would sort of have an okay sort of icon, but then it would write just gobbledygook, words that don't exist. It would just make them up. So it was hallucinating text, which was weird. Here's a list of other image creators. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see there's just so many coming out, and this is just April. I think it's just going to keep getting more and more crazy. But that's where I came across Starry AI as number 2 there. Jasper Art I played with. I wasn't that impressed. We'll actually send you a copy of this presentation at the end, as well as the recording. So if you want to research more, you'll have access. What else can you do with AI? Well, it's not just about building e-learning courses. You could build e-books and documents for in-house HR purposes. And I'm still sort of contextualizing this for education or HR. You can do it in different languages. So if you've got to build a course for somebody in Japan, you can actually get it to write the high-level design, the content and everything in Japanese. And then you can get it to translate it into Russian or Ukrainian or whatever. Real-time Q&A and assessment, I think, is very exciting, very interesting area. I'm going to be researching more and more into that. It could address accessibility, especially if you build a video and you want to automate the text or something. It can help you refresh content. And there was that example I gave of suggesting pathways of learning from a library, but it could actually periodically refresh and update content for you. In fact, in real time, while you're doing something, it could add pages of explanation if you're struggling with an assessment. It could, yeah, so it becomes a customizable, fresh piece of e-learning, and maybe not so stale. And there's the personalization aspect of that as well, based on how you're actually interacting with the online training in real time. Well, here's an example of what Alex and I are putting together, but you're going to see more and more tools coming out that can support you. So what Coursebox can do is you can type in fill out a form, what sort of course you want, and we'll step through and break down that what you need to write. And I've actually got a template today that I'm going to get you all to play with using ChatGPT because it's like what you put in is what you get out. But in this case, it's just another AI tool that's coming out soon, which will write your title, your description for you, break down your high-level design, write all of your content, write all of your quizzes, options for AI assessors and tutors throughout. So watch this space. That's pretty exciting, and there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff in this space. And here you can see it's writing all the content for you that you can then edit and change. The ebook challenge, give yourself this challenge if you've got an hour aside. If there's something you've always wanted to write a book on, try to do it in an hour and see how far you get. And I was able to write 100 pages with 10 chapters in an hour. Obviously, I wasn't writing it, but I was putting in all the smart sort of prompts that generated the sort of overview I wanted. It's not really a high-level design, is it? It's the chapter formatting that I wanted, table of contents, and then a lot of copy and pasting, And again, ChatGPT had the context. It understood the sort of book I was writing. It understood the table of contents. Then I was able to use each title and just say, okay, write me 500 words on that. Great, next. And depending on sort of what level of trust you're going for and how academic, that's when you're going to want to start thinking about those options for referencing. And by the way, there is a ChatGPT Chrome extension which adds in the smarts of real referencing with actual links. And I've tried that a bit. And if you haven't tried it, it's definitely worth a go, especially if you're worried about any sort of plagiarism issues that you might inadvertently have, or if you want more trust through referencing. All right, it's 5:40. We've got 20 minutes left. So we do want to have a little bit of time at the end for a bit of a Q&A. But here's the practice challenge. So as I say, if you haven't already, please quickly jump on your computer to ChatGPT and register or log in. And if you have any trouble, just please ask Alex in the chat. And we can follow along, like I'll do it on my screen as well. So if you can't log in, you're not missing out. But yeah, so please log into ChatGPT. And if you're using the paid version, then it's like $30 a month. Then you have access to the 4th generation. The free version, I think, is still 3.5, which is still pretty good. It's just not as powerful and doesn't have quite so much input and output options for length. We're going to create a high-level design for a course. So if there's a course you've always wanted to write, or even if you haven't, think of one now. What is the course you want to write? And let's limit it to just a 20-minute course. And we're going to write that high-level design and content treatment. We're going to have 3 lessons with 3 topics, a quiz, let's say an animation script, just to show you that we can write those scripts, and 1 scenario. So you need ChatGPT, and you need some sort of blank document. That could just be a notepad on your screen or a Google Doc or a Word. So please open up your chosen word processor. If you prefer, you could just build it straight into an LMS or a course authoring tool, but I recommend against it. I'd suggest just follow along with a text document. And we're going to be copying and pasting into that document throughout the practice challenge. So that's step 1. The step 2 is we're going to generate every section of text and every quiz with answers, feedback, scenario, animation. Do you need some images? Try Starry AI or something. And we're going to write that document. Now, I've got a bit of a cheat for you for the prompt template, and I think this is something that's quite important, especially if you're not an instructional designer. You might not sort of know what to ask GPT to get the most out of it. So I'm going to give everybody a copy of this. Alex, if it's possible, could you copy this from the presentation into the chat so that everybody's got this paragraph? All right, so I'm going to stop sharing screen here and come back. Alex, let me know if there's any questions or concerns. If not, I'm going to push on with my side. And I'm going to, so if you haven't logged into GPT, please do. I'm clicking new chat. You can use 3.5. I'm going to use 4. And let's try plugging in that paragraph. So create a course about. Okay, well, I'm going to write one on building courses with AI, various types of AI. How long should it go for? That takes 20 minutes for a learner. What sort of learner? Well, we need to think about our audience. For teenagers, no. For instructional designers, there should be, okay, how many core learning objectives? For 20 minutes, I'm going to say 3. How many lessons? 3 lessons. 3 topics per lesson. 3 quizzes, 3 questions per quiz. It might not do this perfectly, but you can ask it to refine it. Write this course in what language? Well, I'll just do English. Finally, write an overview of the course and give it a title. And off we go. So it's given me the title. It's writing the course overview. And this can be such a pain to write, actually. Sometimes. Oh, look, it's giving me my core learning objectives for the course. Fantastic. And obviously, I can edit this and make my own decisions. Or if I've got some existing content, I could throw that in and just say, reference this 1,000 words of content for this bit. All right, so I'm going to go into Google Drive, create a blank document. And I hope some of you are following along with your own document and ChatGPT. It's still mind-blowing just how fast this is, really. Such a relaxing exercise, not stressful at all. All right, copying that in. There it is. It always gives you this gray background on the text. If you want to get rid of that, click on highlight color, none, and it didn't help. I'm not sure how to do it. Damn. Okay, I'll look into that. I think it's actually the block color, but it's not relevant for now. So I've got my course overview, I've got my title, I've got my objectives, I've got my lesson. It's given me a quiz with 3 questions, lesson 2, quiz 2, and so on. It skipped a couple of things. I think it skipped scenario, didn't it? So what I'm going to do is come back and say, I don't even have to say write the scenario. I can say, where is the scenario? And it often gets it. Where is the scenario? Apologies for the oversight. I love how polite it is. Here's a scenario that can be incorporated into the course. So I hope some of you are following along, doing the same exercise with your own course. And if you find anything interesting, please put it in the comments. That would be great to have a look afterwards. There it is. I've got my scenario. So that's going to go in there, and I have to decide where I'm going to put this scenario. So the most obvious place probably here. Scenario 3, but I'd have to double check that. Okay, now I've got a scenario. What don't I have? I don't have really a summary or an introduction. So write an introduction. Oops. Let's say, I'm just going to make it very short for now, but it could be as long as you wish. 100-word introduction outlining the core learning objectives in a list. You can, at any time, if you're not familiar with this tool, you can stop generating, or you can click edit and you can change what you've written. But do remember, it is a chat, so it does remember what you've been chatting about within this. If you want it to have a blank chat, you just go back and create a new chat. It's also got your histories on the left. All right, so I've got my introduction. And if I could ask it to write it in a more corporate theme, I could ask it write a poem about this topic in the style of Shakespeare. If this is relevant, it's not relevant for what I'm doing, or could be if I'm just trying to show an example of this. Yeah, I could throw that in as a bit of a fun example, because the last thing you want to do is create dry, boring e-learning, right? It's often good to splatter in something that's a little bit of fun. So I might decide to use that within my content treatment. But you can see you just sort of work through this process. When I get to it, here is an example poem. Right, so now I've done all that prep, I would just simply step through lesson 1, topic 1, and now I'm going to say write 200 words on the first lesson, topic 1. And it's off and running. The last thing I'll do, and then we'll just jump off of this exercise into Q&A, and we'll open up and ask you to unmute. The last thing I'll do is write a script. Write a script for a 30-second animation that expresses a key or learning outcome. And then I could be more creative with this and say, okay, well, actually, I want you to do it in the style of, let's say, Stanislavski. In fact, I want you to write it as a theatrical script. And that is the end of the presentation itself. So I'm going to stop sharing. And if you don't mind, if everybody could unmute, and let's just open this up to a bit of a Q&A. Firstly, with Alex. Are you there, Alex? I hope.
Yeah, Travis. Yeah, I'm here.
I haven't been following along with the comments at all. Was there anything in there that we should?
No, it doesn't look like we've received any questions yet. Did anyone have anything they wanted to ask Travis?
with that script, do you just
Yep.
plug that script straight into Steve AI, for example, and it will build it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and using the AI, it'll suggest all your scenes, and you'll have the voiceover, and you can have it with a male voice or a female, Australian accent, American accent. Yeah, or you could. There's other software out there as well. You can upload the script, like the one I was talking about. Alex, did you remember the name of that software? I can't think what it was, but you can train the voice to the voice of the narrator, of the teacher, and then it will just read the whole thing for you.
Yeah, I think you remember. I remember you mentioning something called Descript. Is that it? Or is that something else?
That might have been it. Let's follow up afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. No, we'll find that and send it through to everyone. Another one that I've played around with is Synthesia, where they have an avatar who looks like a real person, and you can plug that script in, and they can like read it out to you, and it looks like an actual video recording of someone speaking to you. It's pretty incredible. And same thing, you can choose like different accents, different looking people and everything.
If everybody is available to unmute at this time, that would be great. Oh, Angela, you've got a question? Yes?
Yeah, so when you've created something on ChatGPT, can you just go through again the plugin or where you go to for the referencing? Do you put your whole chunk of document into wherever that is? How do you check your referencing?
Yeah, that's the trickiest thing. That's what I'm struggling with myself. But if you use the ChatGPT Chrome plugin extension, then you'll see that it's an option when you're using ChatGPT, and you can ask it to provide 3 references, and it actually scours the web, finds useful references, and writes the content from that standpoint. So that's been useful, and also you saw with Bing. So instead of using ChatGPT, I actually used Bing to do it. It would write it, but it has access to the internet, and it was giving me those references as it went.
Okay, so did you put your whole document into Bing to get those references, or just chunks of it?
So it was actually writing raw content for me and referencing its own content.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm with it.
Are you asking if you've already got content written and you want it referenced? Is that what you
mean? Yeah.
You could probably do something similar. I haven't tried it with Bing perhaps, or the Chrome extension. You could paste your article in and say, rewrite this for me with references, or you could say, rewrite it using exactly the same text and add references in. And I think that's where you're just going to have to play around and explore it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So that Chrome extension, is that Monica?
I think it was called, I don't know if it was called Monica. They might have, yeah, maybe. I have to double check.
That's where it's taken me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was Monica when I used it, but that was a couple of months ago, and it may well have changed its name in the last few weeks. Yes, Angela.
Another question for Alex, actually, and it's in regard to Jasper and the marketing. You being a marketer, have you played around much with Jasper, and how did you find it?
Yeah, so I was actually using Jasper quite a lot for marketing before ChatGPT exploded. Found it, was like very similar and got a huge amount out of creative writing. So anything related to writing copy, whether it was blog articles, email newsletters, creating ads, found it extremely useful. When ChatGPT came along, I guess, when you're comparing the two, Jasper, I believe now is actually integrated with ChatGPT, interestingly. Yeah. But so Jasper is more of a paid service, and I guess what you're paying for is particularly those templates. So they've got like templated prompts, which will link to ChatGPT. So there's a lot of work that they do for you on the back end.
Yeah.
So for example, maybe you wanted like a social media ad to be created. So you would go in there, input a few things that Jasper asks you, and then that would generate the copy for you. Whereas with ChatGPT, it's very reliant on the person putting in the correct prompt. So what you ask for can create a very, very different answer based on the way you word it. So if you're looking for something a bit higher quality and the marketing side is really important to your business, I think, yeah, Jasper can be a good option in that regard.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Leo, there's actually quite a few ChatGPT extensions now. I reckon 2 months ago there was one. Now I'm coming across 18. There's one called ChatGPT for Chrome. That might have been the one I was thinking of. But there's definitely one, and maybe it's Monica, one where you are using ChatGPT and the interface is slightly different and it goes through all the references first. And I'll double check and get back to you on that. Danielle or Doug, do you have any questions or thoughts, or are there any AI software out there that you're using already?
No questions from me, but I found this really useful. I have played around with ChatGPT in the last few weeks to write this kind of content. And I've had a little bit of success, but I can definitely see that using refined prompts and being really specific about what you want does create better results. So yeah, this has been really useful. Thank you. Very interesting.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that. Can I ask what context do you create learning in?
I'm a change manager, so I'm looking to write a course on the basics of change management. I'm looking to write a few, but I thought I'd just start off with the fundamentals of change management, and then sort of branch out to things like change management for human resource professionals, change management for project managers, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Yeah, I wish you luck with using AI.
Thank you.
Any other AI that jumped out that might be useful other than ChatGPT from what we talked about? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I really like the sound of, was it Steve AI? That's really cool. I'm not much of a info designer. I've got no design experience whatsoever. I'm more of a HR practitioner. So I'm really new to that kind of thing. So yeah, I found it very interesting.
Oh, great. Well, we'll send you the recording and the presentation if you forget one of those tools. But that image generator I think is pretty cool, especially because it lets you refine and drill down content. I went to see a presentation recently on these Adelaide guys that live in California, and they're building out anime films, and they said using AI, it's just unbelievable game changer. It's brought down the cost of production massively. And they started their presentation showing 2 images on the screen, which one was generated by human, which one AI. We'd all put up our hands for one or the other. And at the end, they're like, actually, AI created all of the images.
Oh, wow.
No, they were pretty mind-blowingly good.
Was that Rory?
No, it wasn't Rory. No. I don't know. No, it was a couple of guys that live in California and they built out this anime studio. Yeah, really impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, please feel free to reach out and email us, and we'll send through the recording after this. So thanks very much, everybody. And
Thank you. That was really good. I enjoyed that.
awesome. Thanks.
It's great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.